What's up, everyone? Welcome to Bluegrass State of Mind, the show where three college roommates talk life, sports, and all the ridiculous things that happen in an apartment we like to refer to as Room 302. We're bringing you stories, hot takes, and the kind of late-night debates that probably should have stayed in the group chat.
So grab your headphones, sit back, and get ready for a wild ride through our past college life, sports, and everything in between. Let's get into it. This is Bluegrass State of Mind.
Welcome back to another episode of Bluegrass State of Mind. We are excited. We are pumped up. The Cats are headed to the Sweet 16 for the first time since 2019. Fellas, what a game. Let's go right into it. Mason, I know I want to hand it off to you tonight first, Mason, because you have been heavy. Not that me and Colton haven't been heavy on Pope, and Treg, I'm pretty sure he's heavy on Pope, but from day one, you have really had a lot to say about Pope. So just talk about the game in general and some of your thoughts about it.
Yeah, first off, we're all super excited, right? We haven't felt this in a long time. Okay, the past few years we've all been pretty disappointed after the first weekend of March, right? So it's just super exciting to be able to go into the second weekend and be able to watch the Cats again. But yeah, in regards to Pope, coming in, I was high on Pope. I think he's a great coach. I did a little research on kind of what he's done at BYU. I know he hadn't had a tournament win, but with what he was able to recruit there, I think he did a great job there. I think he's a great X's and O's coach, very analytical. We've seen that a lot this year. And as far as the game goes, it was a fun game from the very beginning. I feel like this is the first time in a while that we have come out against a good team and just had complete control from tip to finish, right?
Just come out and smack them in the mouth.
They had their runs, obviously, but we answered every run that they had. We never let them really gain momentum after that first tip, and it was really good to kind of see that and feel that against a good team. We've come out and do that against bad teams, but it's been a while since we've done that against good teams. So it was an exciting game. I was pumped up the whole game, yelling at the TV. Super. It's probably the most excited I've been during a game in a long time. Obviously, the stakes were high, with everything that's happened the last few years, but I think the most surprising thing to everybody here was our defense, right? Where did that come from? I don't know what changed. I think we had a good game plan coming in. They talked about it some during the broadcast, how we switched to pick and rolls. Illinois runs a lot of pick and roll offense, a lot of Spain pick and roll. They got a lot of wings who can get to the basket and create. So I think we did a good job kind of containing that and handling that. I don't feel like they ever really had any good looks, right? I feel like they had to work for everything kind of all night. They had a couple good looks, but we were worried about, Evicic being able to stretch the floor. He had a couple of threes, but I feel like we did a good job with him. We controlled Jonas. We controlled Riley. He had a great game the game before. I just feel like we did a good job all around defensively and had a great game plan. Like I said, exciting game. I'm just really happy we get to watch them again next year. I'll kind of throw it over to y'all, and then I'll give some more thoughts here in a minute. But let's hear y'all's initial reactions.
Yeah, Colton, I want to hear your reactions about the game in general.
Yeah, so first off, very happy for Pope. I know there was a lot of storylines going into that got added that was really unnecessary, but they were there whether we wanted to add it or not. Obviously, his former team that he hadn't won a tournament with, they make the Sweet 16 under a new coach, and the guy they replaced that the fans were claiming, can't win is also in the Sweet 16, right? And so Pope was then the last one to try to enter it, right? And whether people wanted to add it or not, there was pressure there, and he answered the call, right? And the Cats, they looked good. My biggest takeaway was that Troy game on Friday night. It looked like we were very lazy-minded. We weren't into that game.
Lack of effort, second half for sure.
Right? And you're like, well, man, and we've seen that 2 or 3 times this year. And that Pope as a guy that takes a lot of pride in that type of stuff. So it's not that I don't think that he's preaching effort. So it makes me wonder if since we have such a veteran team, if maybe they kind of come at it with some plays off and that mindset. But what you saw tonight, they did what a veteran team does also when they decide to, hey, we're going to be better than you tonight. And that's what they done from the tip, right? Our leaders took over. Butler, Brea, Williams. They just did not let Illinois, they didn't. Every time we got up 10 and every time, or 10 or 12, and every time that they would get it to like 8, we'd hit a 3. We'd make it back. Like they just never cut it down, or we never seemed rattled. And that to me was, the experience kicking in. But overall, I do think we shocked Illinois early. I think that they
Yeah.
made a lot of lazy passes. I think they came at it in a way like, oh, this team's not going to play defense. This team's not going to. And when we came out, it was like they were shocked, right? Like that's the Illinois team that I watched play USC at home.
Right.
That I
Exactly.
was like, where did this team come from, right?
Yep.
That team, and that's what happened. And you just didn't know what was going to come out. But now we said it, even though a lot of people were kind of coming at it before the game. They were trying to be like, oh, if we don't win this game, it'll be, it's still a good year. Not the heck with that. We should have won this game. Like we were expected to win this game. And we talked about it. Anything less than a Sweet 16 was going
Let
to be
them
a
know.
disappointment.
Let them know,
And
Cole.
so,
Yeah.
well, I mean, like I don't like lowering expectations for Kentucky basketball. Like that's not to say if we was to lose that you can sit there and say, oh, that's the worst. But expectations are still there. Like you don't need to be going into the game thinking, "Oh, it's okay if we lose." No, it's not okay if we lose
Great.
ever.
Yeah. And it brings it back almost to the point that, like, it's Kentucky's what's across the jersey.
Exactly.
Kentucky's bigger than Calipari. It's bigger than Pope. It's bigger than Pitino. It's bigger than any coach that we'll ever have. So, I mean, I fully agree with you. That's the expectation. So, Trey, what do you got?
I told y'all last time I was on this, I was scared to death of Illinois. I remember saying it, and I, I'll be honest with you, when I come away from this, like it's a good thing when you don't know whether that team was actually better than you thought they were. So what does that mean? Either they weren't, or you played really well. And I thought the defense was the catalyst. I mean,
Uh-huh.
Lamont at the top, and then I thought the most underrated player in the entire game on both sides of the ball was Andrew Carr. And the reason I say that from an offensive standpoint is if you watched early in that first half, they dropped Big Z's brother. And he was always in the middle of paint, and we could get any shot we wanted to at the top of from the top of the key to the free throw line. And if you notice the run we took in the second half, they finally went to Kobe Brea, and he took the game over from where the top of the key to the free throw line. And I was waiting for him to do it, and because of the law, all the offense kind of runs from there, anyways. But and I do feel like we got a little lackadaisical at times when we could have stepped on their throat and put the game away. But that's just part of it. But
Yeah.
overall, uh, loved it. Moving on.
I mean, you talk
Top.
about, yeah, I mean, you talk about the defense, in which we'll get to the Rocky Top towards the end of this, but the defense, I mean, we had 14 steals. I mean, you're speaking from Illinois' perspective, you're not going to win many games if you have 14 turnover. I mean, like that's just not going to happen. But
Not against Kentucky.
Yeah, not against us. And the way that we shot the ball, I mean, we shot the ball 47%, 38% from three. Our free throws were not the best, 12 for 20. Still got to work on that. Got to make those on the bigger crunch time games. But for me, I think there's two plays that really stick out to me. And one was a freshman and one was a senior. And one in both halves. The first play was towards the end of the first half when Trent Noah gets the pump fake three to give us a 5-point lead. Because there was a little bit of momentum that Illinois, they went on a little run that it started to shift just a little. And, if we don't get that foul and Noah came up with a big rebound there to also lead down to that shot, it could be just a 2-point or a 3-point game. And I know that don't seem like a lot, but it is for momentum's sake. And then for me, the biggest play of the game, and it stuck out to me as soon as it happened. I wrote it down because I was like, this is what's going to lead us to the win. Is with about 4.5 minutes left, they went on a run, and it was a 10-point game, and we had went like back to back with Williams and Carr and didn't have anything, and we miss a shot, and Butler steals it and gives Garrison the and one. He didn't make the free throw, but that momentum shift, because they had come down and hit like a 3 and a 2, and they were starting to get in their mojo. And I was like, oh no, this is where it could, because it was 4.5 minutes, a lot of time. And then we completely just took it over whenever he got that stealing in. We just completely shifted. But those were two of the biggest key plays for me in the game. And, I love to see it. You talk about the game plan that we had. I was listening to the post game show on the way home, and they said that Mark Pope was saying KDA a lot. And I don't know if y'all heard this, but what he's referencing that to is keep your dribble alive. And he said that was their game plan a lot for today. And you talk about Treg was talking about Kobe Bryant. How often? I mean, that's a side of Kobe Bryant that we knew he had, but that's not a side that you see much of. Most of his points were generated off the dribble, going around the screen, getting it behind the guy, and just doing a little pump fake or just pulling up. I mean, he had a couple of threes there, but most of it was off the dribble, which is really good to have for moving forward, in my opinion.
But
Yeah.
either their scout was terrible, because why do you sink the guy that low? And then I bring it back to Carr. Like, I just don't feel like they wanted us to pound it into Carr and him go to work on their 4-man.
Yeah, I mean that's a big key to me. I mean, Brea done exactly what he had to do because he's such a good shooter that when he catches it off the screen, they have to be so close to him, right?
It's
They
almost
can't.
as if they're holding him. I mean, you look
Right.
at it and you're
They
like, man, there's no separation
exactly.
at
They
all.
have to do that because he's able to pull it and he's got a good chance of hitting it. So then just doing a few of those dribble ins, they don't know exactly what he's going to do. Is he going to immediately catch and shoot? Is he all of a sudden going to dribble in and drive? So if you have the team guessing on every time you get the ball, and that's vulnerable for the defense, and that's what Brea did. He had them guessing as soon as he come off a screen. They had no idea what he's about to do, and that's a dangerous move going forward, especially with how well he shoots it.
Yeah.
Mason, I want you to fill in on that, but I also want to hear your perspective on Lamont Butler's performance from the defensive end, because I mean he is just the catalyst for us moving forward. Regardless if he has an offensive game moving forward like he did tonight, but
Yeah.
what does that do to teams on that matchup when you have a point guard who is up in you the entire game?
Yeah. So first to start on Kobe Brea, I don't know if y'all remember, it was kind of when we first started. Lamont got hurt, and I talked about us using Kobe Brea in the ball screen, right? And I saw a stat somewhere, I don't remember what it was, but his efficiency rating coming off ball screens was super high. And I talked about hopefully Pope using him in ball screens more just because of his threat to shoot the ball, right? They can't really sag off and not hedge that screen. So if he's able to set a good screen and his defender gets stuck on it, then obviously that big has to help. That just creates a disadvantage for the other team on the defensive side of the ball. So I think it was a great game plan to get him involved using that. I mean, like you said, a couple times he had that ball on a rope, right? He was out there dribbling it, and we've seen him do it a couple times, but it's a little surprising when he comes out and does that. So I really hope we can utilize that going forward, because I do think he is such a threat whenever we can get him in a ball screen and get him going down the hill just because of his shooting capability. They have to defend it, really hard, and that opens up other things. Going into Butler, so as a point guard, that is the most annoying thing in the world when you have a defending point guard like that up in you nonstop 24/7. It drains you mentally, it drains you physically on both ends of the floor. And that we've talked about it all year, how important he is to this team. And the defensive presence that he gives, he just changes the game so much because everything runs through your point guard, right? If you can't get in your sets, if you're delaying your sets, it throws timing off, it throws everything off. And I know every opposing team point guard Zakai Ziegler, he's probably already thinking about it. He's only played him once this year, but I guarantee you he's thinking about it right now. Man, I got to play this dude for 40 minutes, and he's going to be up in me. I got to take care of the basketball if we want a chance to win this game. And like you said, if he comes out and performs like that on the offensive end, the ceiling's really high for this team if he can give us that. That's the first time we've seen that since he's been hurt, right? Him come out and be able to do that on the offensive end. And that just opens up so much more on the offensive end, too, whenever he's able to do that for us, with the threat that we have from outside with everybody else. So, really excited that he had that game. Hope it gets him some confidence back after that injury and he can keep building on that going forward.
Yeah. Anything else on the game, guys? All right, let's move on. Well, other than Kentucky, before Kentucky played, I mean, we were all in amazement of the matchup that we got to see against just a legendary old school matchup. You had Cal versus Pitino, and it was more of your uh, old style basketball, it seemed like. And you had Arkansas coming out on top of a score of 75-66 in college. Cal is 14-10 now against Pitino, and now he is 3-2 in the tournament. You just think about the season for Cal. Calipari started out 0-5 in SEC play. Then he won at Rupp. Then he has his 5-star point guard Boogie Flang get hurt for 6 weeks. And then he has his, I think, overall best player throughout the whole season, Adu Thiero, get hurt. Wins a game in the SEC tournament, and now has prevailed to get to the Sweet 16. And then you have Pitino, who left Louisville. He was at Loyola, right? Is that right? Loyola?
Iona.
No, Iona. Then he's at St. John's, and this is his, what is this? Correct me if I'm wrong. Is this his third or fourth team that he has took to the tournament?
Fourth.
Third.
Fifth,
Fourth.
maybe.
Wait.
Boston.
Kentucky. Yep.
Boston U, Providence.
I'm pretty sure it's his like
Louisville.
7th.
Yeah.
I thought it was 4. Maybe I'm wrong.
Providence,
Boston,
Kentucky,
Providence.
Louisville.
He took Iona to the tournament.
St. John 6.
Yeah, 6.
Okay, 6. So I was off. Well, regardless,
Did you count Boston?
Yeah, Boston, Providence, Kentucky,
UK, Louisville, Iona, St. John's.
Yeah.
So you have 2 Hall of Fame coaches. Greg, you're a little bit older than all of us. You sent a message to us from the beginning of the game, like with probably 5 minutes in. You was like, "This is the type of basketball that I like seeing." Talk a little bit about what we got to see.
Well, I think a lot of kids these days, I don't necessarily think about y'all, but I know this generation, they call it bully ball, where you're just pounding it. I mean, you're going right at each other. And the physicality. That's just how, I kind of grew up playing. You know, there's so many ball screens in today's game. I was talking to a buddy the other day, an old teammate. I don't ever recall a pick and roll being called for me as the point guard. All of our sets and designs was screens that were going away from the ball, and you were popping off and fading and curling, and you just had to be physical. There wasn't no dribble drive, weaving. If you went into a weave, a dribble handoff, it was at the end of the game to ice the clock. Like, it wasn't to get into an offense. So screening was just a huge part. Going toe to toe with somebody, a point guard going to screen a 5-man, and you had to lay the wood to them, or you were going to get run over. And that game brought me back to that, and it was just it was fun to watch. And I know there was a ton of fouls ended up being called, but that's just the way it is, And
Yeah. I mean, there was 58 free throws that were shot in that game. That's a lot. And I want to throw out a stat, and I do want to, and then I want to hear from Colton and Mason. So here's a thought to think about. As much as that was what I referenced, I said it was a bully ball game. As much as it was a bully ball game and physical athletes, I mean, it was right down Cal's area or right down his alley. That's the kind of teams I think Cal does amazing as, when he is just pure athletes. You saw hands going at the rim. I mean, it was just unbelievable what I was seeing. I'll be honest with you. But take that away, and you're just talking about just basketball skill, shot making, being able to create your own. Was there really any of that in that game? And the reason why I asked that is because you got Arkansas, 2 for 19 from 3. St. John's, 2 for 22. They combined 4 for 41 from 3. St. John's was 21 for 75 on their field goal percentage at 28%. I mean, it's a miracle that they was just even in the game. but neither team played well. Colton, Mason, talk a little bit about that. Even though it was a bully ball game, was there much basketball skill, like shot making ability, or was it just because of the defenses that both teams brought? What was thoughts on that?
Yeah. So, I mean, the intensity was just that might have been the most physical and athletic game of college basketball that I may have ever watched in my entire life since I've been born. And that's just crazy to me. Look, that's the knock on both teams that everyone went into it like, oh, if St. John's was going to make a run, like the one thing that would hold St. John's back was maybe their inability to shoot the three. Honestly, if you look back at Arkansas, the first half of the season, they were shooting 18% from the 3 point range through their first like 15 games or something like that. Right. So if either of those teams could shoot the three, they might be impossible to beat. Right. Like if they were 40% or 35%, like 3 point shooting teams, but they're not. But they play in a different style, right? We talk about us needing to hit the three, which is a weapon for us because it's something like neither of those teams have. But we also talk about like if what happens if we went 2 for 22 from three, right? Like, do we win those games? No, but those type of teams find ways to win games differently in just a different style. So I don't know if you want to say it's a lack of skill or talent. I don't believe that. I just think that you have certain ways to win games, and those were the ways that they know how to win games the best. And to me, I think that was what's shown. I mean, it was an unreal game. I mean, it really was just a lot of athletes. I mean, I was tired watching it. Like I know I couldn't. There's no way that they could move or get out of bed the next day. I got exhausted just watching them. I know they had to be killed, but
Oh yeah, I mean the entire second half. I text y'all, I said I feel like it's been under 2 minutes for the entire second half. I mean it's like, and then I look up,
yeah,
there'd be 8 minutes left. I'm like, my goodness, where'd this
yeah.
go? Mason, do you agree with Colton on this? I'm kind of interested in. Do you agree that it's just? I mean, two teams finding ways to win. It wasn't necessarily not that it wasn't the skill. And I don't want you to be iffy, wishy washy. I want you to take a stance. Is it yes or no?
I think that that game, yes, it was physical, right? There's a bunch of athletes out there on the floor, but I don't think there was a lot of skill shown in that game. I mean, just look at some of the stats you read off. You know, the shot making capabilities of those guys. I just think it was a really physical game with a bunch of athletes trying to get by each other. I think they matched up really well against each other, right? Like Holden said, that's kind of their style. But I don't think those teams have won with a whole lot of skill this year, either of those teams. I'm not saying they don't have skilled guys, okay? I'm not saying that. But I just think the style of basketball that they play is they have a bunch of athletes who are going to get downhill. They're going to create mismatches. They're getting to the rim, making layups, throwing up lobs, crashing offensive boards. And that was shown in that game. That's all it really was. A bunch of guys just trying to get by their man, playing hard on both ends of the floor. It was a fun game to watch. Don't get me wrong, but to me, there just wasn't a whole lot of moves being made, basketball plays being made. It was just getting by your man and trying to get to the rim. And if I miss it, I know I got three other guys crashing that are going to have a chance to get an offensive rebound. That's pretty much what that whole game was to me.
And before I hand it to you, Colton and Trey, if y'all want to respond to that, I'm in agreement with Mason on this. I think that, and I'm not taking away that. I'm not saying that being physical is not a skill. Not being an athlete is not a skill. That's not where I'm coming from. I'm coming from where Mason is on the fact that you didn't see the type of skill that today's basketball game has. Like where most you go to you watch any game, most of it is you are making shots, creating your own. And those two teams are skilled just in a different, I don't know what I'm trying, a different way than what we're used to seeing, I guess.
Uh, but before you go, Trig, that's what I was going to say. Can we change the word skill to scoring? Because if you want to label every aspect of the game, rebounding, defense,
Oh, yeah, I agree. It's all
athleticism,
different skills, yes.
outside of the actual just shooting, then they showed skill in every other aspect, right?
But here's my thing. A lot of those things have to do with your athletic ability,
But
right? Like
that's a skill set, right? Like I
is
mean,
I can develop I can
but
develop the same
what I'm
athletic
saying
ability that they
is
have.
okay. But what I'm saying is there any essentially scoring is the only skill set
I'm not
in
saying that.
basketball?
No,
But
I'm not saying
that's
that.
what I'm because if you're saying defense, that they're very skilled in defense. They're very skilled in rebounding.
You throw me a thumbs up right now. Did y'all see
All
that?
right, sweet.
Yeah.
Sorry, got a new phone. I'm still learning the ways here. But what I'm saying, yeah, I mean, every other aspect outside of shooting the basketball, yeah, they didn't have a guy that like does a one-on-one fadeaway jumper, like that type of guy. But every other aspect, defense, passing, rebounding,
Sure,
physicality, everything they did. So like, if they
sure,
all did those things well, then essentially the only things left is scoring.
sure. But
So
here's my take on that. Do I have the same opportunity to be as good of a defender as DJ Wagner? No, because I don't have the same athletic gifts that he has. But I could go out there and work and get my ball handling just as good as DJ Wagner. I could get my shot making just as good as DJ Wagner. I could get my passing just as good as DJ Wagner. Those are the things that I'm referring to, that they just have that athletic ability that you cannot work on and develop. And that's what I saw in that game.
yeah, but like I agree with the passing. Like there was great passes from, well, you know what I'm saying? Like
Sure,
what
sure.
I'm really coming back to is essentially when you break it down, shooting is about the only thing that you could sit there and say neither team really done. Other than that, they both were very exceptional in every other aspect of that game. I mean,
Yeah,
really,
but
they
then I'd
were.
also say that I agree with that, but then also shooting is like, I mean, that's like the number one thing you got to be able to
Right.
do
So
to score
let's
to
say
win.
shooting, not skill. Let's
Well, I
say
say, but I also think it is a skill,
because
and I think that the other things are
because
skills.
you're
But
taking away skills from the other things if you say it
yeah,
that
but they're
way.
not skills like Mason said that you can improve on. I mean,
Okay.
you're just given.
Okay. Well, we're not going to agree on that. I
Trey,
mean,
go ahead.
So, but how do you beat those things?
right.
You
That
don't.
what you're
I'm not.
talking, y'all got y'all hit my hoe. Y'all are talking about like basketball that looks good to you, that you want to sit down and watch, and all these points and all that stuff. But what about winning basketball? If you're not the fastest guy with the ball or can shoot the best, how do you beat that? You beat that with physicality. And some of the teams, Dylan, watching y'all, I mean, y'all were physical with a lot of teams, but then, maybe you see Clinton County or somebody like that that's physical with you. How do you respond? I see some of, the most physical teams, they win a lot of basketball games, whether it looks good to the eye or not, you know. Um, and I mean, that's just how I was brought up and, know the game, but I loved it.
Mhm.
And,
No,
and,
and
and,
I loved
and
it
I
too.
get
I
it.
think
I
we
did
all
too.
did.
Yeah.
I get it. We want to see, Steph Curry, but how do you beat Steph Curry? You get up on him. You got to bump him. You can't let him go free, because if you let that go free, he's going to burn you. So how do you beat him? You're more physical than them. And I agree. That's Cal. That's Cal.
Yeah. Well, while you're talking about that, Trey, you posed a question to us, and I want to hear your thoughts on it. Why did Pitino not go zone in that game? What are your thoughts on why he didn't?
I just think I refer back to, I guess, my head coaching experience, and it's not from a basketball perspective, although I have coached some basketball, but just in general, as a head coach, and I think one of y'all said it, and you really said it best. Patino's been a man guy. That's what he knows. That's what he's always done. He's going to live and die by it. And I kind of look at that philosophy too. Like, if I'm going to lose doing what I feel like my team does best. And yeah, it's easy to say, hey, let's go throw in a zone just to say we did it and tried it. But when it comes, rubber meets the road, and the game's on the line, what are you going to do? You're going to have your team do what you think you do best. And I just think that's probably what Patino thought. He's not just going to throw some zone at Cal just
Yeah.
because.
Well, there's another thing also, and I want to hear Mason and Colton's thoughts on the zone, but I also want to throw this out there because this was a big shock to me. Now I don't. This is just my perspective. This is just my opinion. I do not think that Patino made the right decision whenever he set his Big East Player of the Year for 4 minutes and 50 seconds. He had RJ Lewis. He was the Big East Player of the Year, averaged 18.5 points per game. He was the guy on that team. He had a rough night that night. He was 3 for 17 But at the 4-minute, 50-minute mark, he had just hit 2 free throws, cut it to 2 points, and then Pitino sits him. And I think he sits him because of multiple reasons. You could see his body language was not great. He also was really struggling to find his shot and to find any sort of rhythm. And I totally agree with that. I get him out, let him find himself, give him a break, let him mentally cool down. But I only do that a minute and a half tops. When he's your player of the year in your conference, and we're talking about a game to get you to the Sweet 16. Now, if it's the middle of the season, yeah, teach him a lesson. Do what you want. But to advance to the Sweet 16, I'm not going to let my pride get in front of that. That's just my personal opinion. It may be more of an old school thing of teaching him a lesson, but hey, teaching him that lesson is got you where you're at. You're sitting on the couch for the second weekend, and I don't know that R.J. Lewis being in that time could have prevailed them to win. That's the unknown, but I do absolutely think that he would have helped more than being on the bench. Even though he was 3 for 17, you got to have your best player in the game. That's just my opinion. What are y'all thoughts on that and the Patino zone? Anybody?
Go ahead, Mason.
So going to the Pitino zone, I think kind of what Treg said, right? They've been so good man to man all year, right? They've just had the athletes. They've been more physical than just about everybody they've played. I guarantee they probably haven't worked on zone one time because they haven't had to, right? So it's kind of hard to throw something in if you haven't worked on it. I know, there was a couple years, I think, back when he was at Louisville where they'd run like that matchup zone and things like that when they were at Louisville. But I just think that they've been so physical and so good defensively this year that they hadn't worked on anything like that, and that's why he didn't do it. And again, I don't think it was so much their defensive struggles as it was their offensive struggles. Right? It was such a physical game. Arkansas wasn't shooting the ball well. They weren't scoring too well either. Yeah, they were kind of getting to the rim at some point, but I think their bigger problem was on the offensive end, and a lot of that had to do with what you said. Their best player, he was what 3 for 17, and we know they've struggled to score at times all year. That's kind of been a talking point with St. John's all year long, right? Their offensive struggles at times, and they really rely on their defense and their pressure, getting out in transition. And Arkansas just matched up with them on both sides of the ball, athletically and physically, and that limited them on the offensive end. Going into sitting him, I was kind of, wasn't really able to pay attention. I was on my way back, so I was kind of watching on and off, on the road. But I did get to watch like the last 4 minutes or so, pretty focused, and I get what he did. I do, but kind of like what once I originally was watching, I went back and watched it again. I think you do have to have your best player in there, especially in that moment, right? Your season's on the line. He's kind of been your leader, your go-to guy all season. What does that say to your team, right? If you're over there, your best player, I know his body language wasn't the best, but your team's looking to somebody, right? He's been that leader for them all season long. They're looking to somebody, and he's over there sitting on the bench.
He's actually the only capable shot maker and get his own that they have.
Yeah.
I mean, so Cole, what
Yeah.
was your thoughts on it?
First off, on the zone, my biggest thing is they probably didn't go zone one because they were struggling so much offensively that even though Arkansas is not a very good shooting team, they were at the point of a game to where if Arkansas just makes one or two, they couldn't catch them, right? Because they were struggling too much to score because of Arkansas's defense. So if they didn't have to shoot well. They just had to make one or two more there in the second half, and all of a sudden that game wasn't going to be able to be caught. And also, I think that when you have those type of athletic teams, the biggest issue you run into a zone a lot of times is offensive rebounding, right? Because you're not technically matched up with a man, so it's a lot harder to get onto a man to box out. And to me, when those type of games, you don't want 5 athletes coming in and you don't have a man to guard, right? If those type of 5 athletes are coming in the offensive rebound, it's very hard to get a rebound. So I think that's another reason why those couple teams don't ever really go zone, because they're rebounding and different things like that. Their transition offense is led a lot better through playing man. With that being said, the benching of R.G. Lewis, it's hard for me to question people like Pitino, right, for the reasons they do things. I mean, I think y'all saw the video of him in the locker room, and like one of the things I saw a video where part of the thing he said was, "We don't care about how many shots you miss, get back on defense. Right? It's not we don't care about like he was in the locker room talking to his team at some point this season when they made a video about it. And I didn't really pay close attention, but like was he guarding? Like what was his body language after he did? And those type of guys, they just don't know those type of old school coaches. Take about Bill Belichick. Y'all remember the Super Bowl against the Eagles? He benched Malcolm Butler before the Super Bowl. And obviously the Eagles, I don't think even punted one time in the Super Bowl. Or they lost. And people still like proclaim like, oh, if you'd have Malcolm Butler out there or whatever else. I mean, I don't know why they do the reason they do, but when you have that type of pedigree, there's reasonings behind it, and it's hard for me to really question it. I think he's needed to be in, but who knows if there wasn't more behind the scene? Who knows if he had done the same thing in practice, right?
Yeah.
Who knows if he had done those type of things that led to that moment specifically? So,
Greg, you got any thoughts on the benching of RJ Lewis before we move on?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know the core principles that Pitino has. But just say whatever RJ Lewis did fell under one of those core principles that's like non-negotiable. So I'm not going to sit there and question him. Like, once again, I'll draw back on my experiences. Like there were some things that would irk other coaches that I could care less about. But then there's some things that are so minute that to me are so big that are hard for me to get past. So, it's just for me to say one way or the other. I can't. I mean, I'm not going to go against Pitino. I mean, I don't know his thought process or what his principles are, but he obviously had a reason. And in the biggest game under the biggest spotlight, he did it. So, I'll go with
Yeah, I
him on
mean,
that
hats
one.
off to him for actually. I mean, I'm not taking anything away. I mean, I'm not questioning why he done it. I think for me though, it's hard for me to see
Yeah,
that
but
player of the year.
if you are going to put winning over your core principles, then really what are you doing as a coach?
No, I agree.
You know what I'm saying?
It's just hard. I guess, and another I'm coming from though is I hate to see it be the player of the year, the star of the team who's led you to this type of season. And no, I know it don't matter, but I just hate to see that for the kid.
Now you're setting the precedent for that freshman that's on the bench. That could be your star in 2 years.
I mean, there's all kinds of cases. Like, you take what was it, Alabama football when they benched Jalen Hurts and Tua came in and won it for him, right? Your All American quarterback, and then they turned around and did the same thing, right? Like Tua went hurt, Jalen Hurts comes in and went like I mean, you never know when
Yeah,
those
but
type of
then you play it
situations
out.
are
I
going
mean,
to come up.
you could play it out different ways as well. I mean, I totally agree with y'all, but then I'm not going to sit here and act like if he didn't do that and then they win the game and then they proceed to go to a Final Four and win a championship, nobody's ever going to remember like, oh, well, he will, but for the whole program's sake, those players are not going to. So it's a lot of unknown, I think. But
Right.
let's get to our next segment. I kind of posed this question to the group. So you see all this Cal success. I mean, so what was it? So I quit. My question is for you all in the audience and for these guys is, did Kentucky become too much for Cal to handle? And did he run out of gas? And um, Cal had not made it to the Sweet 16 since 2019. He had 10 great years, but the last 5 were horrendous. Let me just throw out this, and I'm gonna hand it over to Colton first. From when Cal started in 2010. I'm gonna give you a list of what he done, and I'm not gonna say the year. I'm just because that'll take forever. But he was a 1 seed. He made an Elite Eight. He was a 4 seed. He made a Final Four. A 1 seed. He won the championship. He was an 8 seed. Made the championship. 1 seed. He made the championship. 4 seed. He made it to the round of 32. A 2 seed. Elite Eight. 5 seed. Sweet 16, and a 2 seed. Elite Eight. I mean, just it just speaks for itself. I mean,
And
that's all you can
then
say.
regular season SEC champs that gets
Yeah, I mean, I
canceled
didn't
by
even mention.
COVID.
I didn't even mention that as well.
Right.
Okay, but then starting in 2021 because of the COVID year in 2020, starting in 2021, missed the tournament. Then the following year after that, 2 seed lost in the first round to St. Peter's. Then the next year it was 6 seed, lost in the round of 32, and then last year was a 3 seed and got beat to Oakland in the first round. So, did Kentucky become too much for Cal to handle? Did Cal is he not a good coach? Is he just a recruiter? Thoughts, Colton?
I want to go last.
You want to go last? Well, I'm gonna give it to
Yeah,
Treg. I'm gonna give it to
go
Treg
ahead,
then, because
Trey.
I
Y'all
want
don't want
Mason to go
that.
in the middle.
Y'all
No,
don't want that.
We'll put Mason in the middle.
go ahead.
Yeah, get ready. Go ahead. Yeah, I like it. Turn the hat
Here we
backwards.
go.
I cannot. I'm gonna go in. I cannot stand.
I'm same.
I cannot stand when Kentucky fans of all people say the man is just a recruiter, or any basketball person for that matter. The man has won 877 basketball games, maybe 8 if it's not the last one. He has a 76% winning percentage. 1 national championship, 2 runners up, 6 Final Fours. He's a 3-time Naismith Coach of the Year, and he's also a 3-time National Association Basketball Coaches Coach of the Year. Now, all the while, he is a Hall of Famer, Naismith Hall of Fame. They don't just put you in the Hall of Fame because you can recruit. Yes, the last 5 years, 4 years were bad in terms of tournament success, all that. He had a couple of bad recruiting years there too, you know. Um,
Ding, ding, ding. Look what happens when he doesn't have the best
but
players.
What?
man went to a Final Four at
Mate,
UMass.
UMass.
UMass. He went to a national championship
He had one of
at
the best big
Memphis.
men in the
All right.
college that
Okay,
year.
so you say the man is just a recruiter. Would you put Tom Izzo above John Calipari?
Izzo had the same amount of talent that Cal had.
Recruiting is part
You
of coaching.
stop. Yeah, I
Recruiting
hate
is
that
part of
argument
coaching.
because they have the chance to get them. Why aren't they getting them?
Okay, I understand that, but that's my whole argument. There are
Those
better.
are all hypotheticals, Mason. You can't you argue off of hypotheticals. Like you can't argue that because
Okay,
they
hold on.
didn't get those recruits.
Look, I'm gonna give y'all. Hold on. I want Treg to finish out, and then
But
we're
he
gonna give it to
doesn't.
Mason. Hold on, Mason. Treg, finish out what you got to say, and then answer the question though. Did UK become too much for Cal to handle in general? Was the pressure too much for
Look,
him?
I'm gonna tell you something. If I had a kid that grew up and was a burger boy, McDonald's All American, John Calipari come and sat in my front in my living room and recruited him. Okay? I'm not just going off of what the man is telling me. I know the track record of success, of winning, on top of putting that guy in the league. Yes, that stuff matters. I'm sorry. It does. It really does. They're not just coming to Kentucky because it's Kentucky.
And I won't disagree
they're
with
not,
that. But one of my main arguments with Cal over the last years is we became a one-stop shop for the NBA. That's what it was.
I'm not.
what?
I don't.
So
I'm
you
not
don't
disagreeing.
So
Like
you don't recruit the best? You don't go recruit the best
right.
talent
Yes,
there
but
is?
here's what happened. Right? The first 7 or 8 years that he was here, he was getting the number one recruiting class every year. And guess what? He had success with that. Then he starts falling off, and he's not getting these number one recruiting classes.
Why did he not get the number ones though? Who changed their recruiting philosophy? Duke.
Okay,
Coach K.
so then why didn't he change? That's another argument for me with Cal. He doesn't adapt. He stays in his
NIL changed
He
things
retired.
too.
NIL
Right.
didn't start till a year or two ago.
It started to. I mean, but what I'm saying is, yeah, we still had the number one recruiting class last year. Like,
And look, we had a great season last year offensively because we had dudes who could go get a bucket. That's when he's most successful, when he has athletes.
But one thing I do want to post to you all that I still want to hear you all answer. So, did Kentucky become too much for Cal to handle?
No, it did not become too much for him.
Okay.
He just did not win when he needed to. And I will go
Okay.
on the record as saying it was
Okay.
time for him to go. It was. But
exactly.
that does not mean
Right.
he's not a great coach
Absolutely.
and he's just a recruiter. That's not what that means. It means he just did not get it done when he needed to at Kentucky and it was time to move on.
And then I also want to say this for you all who are making this argument and the audience, Mason has went on the record multiple times, and he'll say it tonight too, that he believes that Cal is just a recruiter and not X's and O's. Now, but Mason, I think you are still agreeing that, recruiting, and I could be wrong. Do you agree that recruiting is a part of coaching?
I
Just
agree
yes
that
or no?
I agree that it is a part of coaching. Yes.
Okay, so Mason does agree that it is a part of coaching. Okay, now that's not his argument though. His argument is take out that just X's and O's. Colton, can Cal coach basketball without just taking out recruit? And don't say, well, recruiting is. We're talking about just getting regular guys. I'm just asking. I'm just asking. I want to hear your thoughts because that's what Mason is saying.
Yes, absolutely.
Heck
And the
yes. What are we
my main
talking about?
listen.
What are we
Okay,
talking about?
one of my biggest things
Oh.
is have y'all have all been to a Kentucky game at Rupp Arena, right?
Yep.
When they played the intro video, what's the announcer say at the very end of it? The greatest tradition in college basketball. Do you realize that outside of Adolph Rupp, the guy's that name is on the arena, that John Calipari is like the next biggest contributor to our tradition?
Colton,
You know that?
I'm not taking anything away from what he did. I don't hate Cal. I like Cal.
Like,
I'm just saying that he can't coach X's and O's. That's all I'm saying. He brought us great moments. I am happy for those moments. But when it comes down to X's and O's, there's so many
Listen,
points.
So those
But
first
what-
7 years were just based upon recruiting. That's all they were.
I don't think you what did you consider an X's and O's though? Because
Mason,
if
go
John
ahead, and I'm
Calipari, wait, hold on. If John Calipari draws up a play that says my guy is obviously faster than that guy, and I'm going to have my bigger man set a screen right here, and if that's all it is, and he runs off of it and scores, that's still an X and an O, Mason. That's an X and an O.
No, listen. Me, you, Dylan, Treg, we can all go out there and say, all right, my guy's faster. Let's go set a pick and get by him and get to the rim. That, for me, is not X's and O's. That's not a great basket. Like I said the other day, a prime example, that Kansas game, right? Arkansas had that game won. They're up 11 in the second half. Bill Self comes out in a zone, and what do? They sit there and pass the ball around and jack up threes the whole time and don't run a play. Exactly what they want you to do when you go zone. And that was another thing. Go ahead.
And then what did he do? Called a timeout with 4 minutes left. Right out of the timeout, a perfect play alley-oop to Trevor Brazile. And X and O. And they went on a 7-0 run and won the game for the final 4 minutes.
One play. Guess what?
They went on a 7-0 run.
Yes, because their defense held them without scoring for 4.5 minutes. He drew up one play.
That's the same play that he tried running on a last-second shot.
He has one play in his arsenal.
Go ahead, Mason. No, finish out, Mason. I want to finish your segment.
One play in his arsenal has won 877 games.
Yeah.
I mean, so what's the end goal? If we're talking about a coach, what are you truly measured on? Wins. I'll answer it for you. You are measured upon wins.
Yes, and he hasn't done that the last 4 or 5 seasons because guess what? The game of basketball has changed.
You're right.
Yes, the game of basketball has changed.
I agree with that.
He has not. That dribble drive doesn't work anymore. So back to my thing.
His basketball just got him to a Sweet 16.
Exactly, because he has better athletes. That's my whole point. When he has better athletes, that's when he thrives because he doesn't have to draw up plays. He says, take the ball and go to the rim. Take the ball and go to the rim.
Coach.
And if he's going to miss it, go get a rebound and put it back.
Yeah. If you had to list your top 3 coaches or 5 coaches in college basketball right now, Mason, who you listing? I bet Bill Self and Patino will probably
hold on now. I think Mason's not arguing that Cal is not one of the best coaches. Y'all are taking this. He's arguing that it's.
Yes, he is. What are you talking about?
No,
that's exactly what he's arguing.
Yes, he is.
No, I'm not.
No, he's not.
No.
Yes.
I'm arguing that he is not an X's and O's coach. That's what.
That's if you're saying he is one of the greatest coaches, part of coaching is X's and O's.
Part of it is, yes, Colton, but the other part we just said is recruiting. And I just said if he doesn't have the best players, he doesn't succeed. That's his whole thing. So he gets the best guys.
Let me ask you, who does? UConn sent 4 guys to the draft last year. Like it's not like teams are winning with scrubs, Mason. Like they're not winning with scrubs.
I'm not saying that they're winning with scrubs, but when was the last time that he won? Look at all the talent that he's had.
But who is winning with scrubs? Who is winning with
Well,
scrubs?
but that's
Like,
my exact point, Colton. The only time he can do anything is when he has these guys. You still have other guys out here who are successful with people who don't have the top recruiting class every single season.
See, I
Okay,
think you're the
so
type of fan that he's never
yeah,
going to please, because I don't
no,
know who you
No,
expect him to go do. Do you want him to go to
yeah,
Western
yeah, I know it.
and like show that he can coach?
guys, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying if you
But
look at
that's what you're saying. You're saying that he's got
no,
to
Yeah,
recruit to be
we're
no,
successful,
gonna have to get
and it
past this
no,
because
is. I mean,
this
no,
is
it's not. But
ridiculous.
I'm just saying, whenever he doesn't have those recruits, what does he do?
wins at
okay.
UMass.
Well, here we go. All right, we're
He
gonna
He
move
had
won.
on because
Marcus. He
we're
had
gonna run
Marcus
out.
Camby.
We're gonna run out of time if we don't continue on. It was a great debate. I think you all done a very well job. At the end of the day, we all agree that Cal is a good coach or a great coach, a
W.
Yeah,
phenomenal
He's
coach,
a
Hall of
Hall of
Famer
Fame coach.
coach.
Yes,
So
I will
let's
say
move on.
that.
Here we go. So Treg, I know that you have had a lot of responses on your last statement. We're going to revisit it just a little bit. You posed not posed the question, but you did pose a question, but you made the statement that you believe that college basketball is currently down. And, I can go ahead and tell you right now, a lot of people are going to say, well, because Ole Miss just won. There are 7 SEC teams in the Sweet 16. That's probably something you might hear. I want to give you a chance to kind of lay down the foundation of why you still believe that to be so, that basketball is down when we know who is going to be in the Sweet 16 at this moment. So go ahead.
First of all, the SEC has never done what it's done, and I don't know that the SEC is actually as good as what we thought it was. First of all, but what has always been the best basketball conference? Maybe just say in your lifetime. What would you
yeah,
say?
ACC probably.
ACC
ACC, right?
by
Okay.
far.
Yeah,
Duke is what, all that's left? Am I
Yeah.
right on that?
pretty much. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, that's the only
The
one pit left.
number two and three. I'm gonna turn my hat back around. Number 2 and 3 team was 36-4 in conference, and gone first round, gone. Okay, but I want to go to the talent. All right, All Americans this year. Cooper Flag, stud. Walter Clayton. Okay, I own a signee. Braden Smith, Purdue. Mark Sears, Ohio, out of high school, and Broom from Auburn. Went to Morehead State, signee. Okay. Now, I had the second team too, but let's just say the best team all year has been Auburn, correct? I looked this
Yep.
up. NBADraft.net, mock draft. Okay. Look for both the first 2 rounds. Pettiford, the freshman, is the only one listed as a mock draft players potentially getting drafted in the second round. Nobody else. And that's the best team statistically number 1 all year. Okay. And I do want to go real quick to the second team. Kalkbrenner, Creighton, Cam Jones, Marquette, RJ Lewis, the guy that got set down. He's St. John's, but he was a UMass signee. The Wisconsin guy, how you pronounce it? Tonji?
Yeah.
He was a Colorado State signee. And JT Toppin, Texas Tech, he was a New Mexico signee. All right. So where's the stud freshman? Because of that mock draft, 14 out of the 15 first picks in this mock draft, NBADraft.net, and that's a good one. They usually got good stuff on there. 14 of the first 15 were freshmen, and 19 of the 30 first round picks are freshmen. Okay, where are they in the All American race? I don't see them, and I'm talking about against guys that are coming from mid major programs. And I get development, I get all that, but that's the whole point. That's my point. You
Well, I
see
mean,
these men.
I think that's a great stat to say because some people say, well, are you saying that freshmen college basketball players are down because the draft that you just said are all freshmen, but yet they're not on the uh All American team,
Like
right?
3 or 4 of them didn't even make the tournament. There was
Yep.
like 4 or
So I
5
mean,
of them listed.
it's kind of hard to make that argument, but I want to hear Colton, what are your thoughts on it? Still.
So to me, I think it's based on how you look at it. So take the tournament, right? All 1 through 4 seeds won, right? And you can look at it two ways. You can look at it as, okay,
It's just the second time
so
that's ever happened, I
right,
think.
exactly. And I think a big part of it is, or do you look at it in one way as in, oh, there's not as many upsets because there's not as many good players spread across, or do you look at it as these teams are just kind of becoming more complete? Right? I think we've been so used to having one stud, like you take like Anthony Edwards played for Georgia a couple years ago, right? The number one overall pick played for Georgia, and but they didn't even make the NCAA tournament, right? Now you're talking about a team that's bringing in. You take our team for example. We brought in a three-time conference player every year. We brought in a former runner-up national, like a point guard, ACC player, all these guys, and we build those type of teams. And they're
Mhm.
obviously skilled enough to get conference player of the year and all ACC team and Big 12 teams and all these things. And we've just took seniors who's got all these rewards instead of these freshmen and built these teams. And so to me, I think to me, I don't think that necessarily the talent is down. I just think that it is so like the teams are being built differently and guys are staying longer and NIL is playing a role to where like two of the top three picks played for Rutgers, right? Like
Yeah,
if
but
you
how
put
good
those
are
two,
they? How
but what
good
I'm
are
saying,
they?
okay, well let me ask you this: would you want both those guys on Kentucky or would you want both those guys on North Carolina? Take those blue bloods that struggled. Would any of them have taken them? Like Kansas this year, they couldn't score. I bet you if they took Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey, they would right now, right? Like I mean,
Oh, anybody
it,
would.
right.
But
But and so it would have been a different. But if we were watching Kansas the other night against Arkansas with Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper on the team, it would have looked a lot different than having Harris and Dickinson, like all these fifth year seniors, right? So it's just
yeah, but them
hard for
guys
me
were all
to
Americans last year.
exactly. So like, what happened? And they were a 7 seed this year.
That's a great question. What did happen? I
But
thought Bill
did
Self was a good coach.
talent get better? And so a 1 seed, they were 1 seed with that team last year. Now they're a 7, so that means they had to. Did they get worse or did talent get better? And it's just questions. I mean, personally, I think there's a lot of talent just more spread out, but that's my opinion.
Mason, what do you think?
Here's kind of my take on it. You have, like Holden said, you have these players staying longer, right? You have players staying in college longer, transferring from, mid majors to high majors. A guy's going to be better in his third year than he is in his first year, right? Due to development. And I think we're just seeing college basketball shift towards that, right? I don't think it's necessarily a talent thing. I just think we're seeing the game of college basketball shift because we've been saying for so long, it's hard to win with freshmen, right? You get in March, it's hard to win with freshmen. They haven't been there before. It's tough to do that. So we're seeing these teams kind of go around and build teams around these guys who have already proven themselves at the collegiate level. And maybe it may not be at that high level, right? But they're dominating at these other schools. So then they're coming in. I don't think it's necessarily, the talent's down. We may not see as many freshmen contributing or being part of those bigger teams anymore. Part of that's NIL. Part of that's just, I think, the shift in the game of basketball, shifting towards keeping these older guys longer, developing them, and them understanding the college game because it's a completely different than high school basketball. The speed, the physicality, different skill level. Everybody on the court is just as good as you now instead of you playing a bunch of guys who are accountants now after they
Well,
graduate high school.
let me pose this question because I'm leaning towards I'm still on Treg's side on this still. I think that it is down. And let me ask you this, okay? So I get what you're saying about how it's a development now, but let's just take this Kentucky team for example. Told it 5 years ago. Okay, 5 years ago. This Kentucky team this year has 8 top 15 wins. We had zero contribution coming back from this team there was 0 points scored on this team. How well would this team be 5 years ago where the state of college basketball was at 5 years ago? As a complete hope. Because I don't think that we played a great game, but this team, when you look at this team, I just don't think that we're just like, just talent, just booming everywhere. And I think that speaks volumes on just the state of the game. I mean, yes, it is. There's a lot more older teams, which is caused through development, and you gradually get better. but that doesn't mean that your talent wise is still great.
How do you guys measure talent? Is my question.
To me,
What's your measuring?
so like you have the two, who's the two for National Player of the Year, right? A fifth year senior and a freshman. So obviously, Flag is the more talented. Like he's going to be the NBA guy. But as far as you look at college basketball, right, you would probably take Flag, but not by a whole lot right now. Right, there's several people that probably would be like, that I could use the broom over. No, they're going to take Flag. But what I'm saying is, yes, one was a fifth year, one was a freshman, and that's how it is now. Instead, it used to be the top 10 players were all freshmen, but now we've got guys that are. Take DJ Wagner, #1 recruit last year, correct? Right, and he's liable, looking right now, to probably be here for a junior year.
Oh, he needs to be here for his senior year.
Right. But what I'm saying is now we've got a #1. When's the last time you had a #1 high school recruit that stayed till junior year? And I'm not saying it's because he's choosing to, but what I'm saying is that you don't have that anymore though. Like, but he's also probably making as much as he would in the G. Like he could have left. A lot of those guys left. How many guys left from Kentucky that are that never saw the NBA court? Right? They just went straight to the G League. He could have done something like that. But now when you get paid in college, why not stay long? I mean, Cooper Flag is considering staying another year.
No,
He's not going to. He's not going to. But that's been brought up, but it's a legit.
Yeah.
Like, if they was to lose and not win the national title, like, those are, like, legit arguments now because you make as much as you would as a rookie.
But let me give you this. So, of those 5 first-team All-Americans, Flag was listed as #1 overall. Walter Clayton they got picked dead last in the first round, 30th pick. Broom and Braden Smith are not listed anywhere, first or second round. And Mark Sears, who was one of the best guards we seen, 58th, which is like the 3rd pick from dead last. He could go undrafted also. Like and those guys were the best of the best this year.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a different game too, though.
Mason, I'm gonna give you Mason. Give us 1 minute because we gotta move on to our last one. But go ahead, closing statement on that, Mason.
No, I just think it's a different game at the NBA level. Kind of like Colton said. Now with the NIL, these guys, like let's take for example Reed Shepherd. Everybody was so high on him. He goes to the Rockets. He gets sent down to the G League, right? Why not? If you're not guaranteed a top 10, 15 pick, why not stay here, keep developing, make more money than you're going to make in the NBA, and keep playing college basketball? I think we're seeing a lot more of that now because it's so hard now. I think the NBA's gotten a lot better too, talent wise. I think it's so hard for people to come straight out of college and contribute immediately in the NBA.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get on to our last segment of the night. We know who we're playing. We are playing the Pukey Orange team. Rocky Top.
I can't sing my song on this because I'm afraid we've got.
Well, we
certain audience.
Yeah, we have currently played the Tennessee Volunteers twice this season, obviously, because they are in conference. We have won both times. We won the first matchup at Tennessee with a score of 78-73. Then we played them at home and beat them of a score of 75-64. Obviously, you've heard this multiple times between chatter. If there was a possible matchup, which now there is a matchup, it's come to fruition, and that it is hard to beat a team 3 times. I mean, that's the argument. That's the biggest argument. And then the counter argument to that is that I've heard multiple times is, well, I think we match up really good against this team. You think that we might have this team's numbers. So I'm gonna start things off, and then I'm gonna hand it off to y'all, and then we'll close it for this episode of Bluegrass State of Mind. But my initial thoughts is, I get where they're coming, that this is a hard team to beat. I don't like the fact that Tennessee, I think, is playing some of their best basketball right now, whereas they weren't in the middle of the season. The thing with this Tennessee team is they struggle to score. That's their biggest weakness. And as of late, they haven't. Chaz Lanier has been playing great. You've got Ziegler, who's been playing great. And then you also have those other guys that help them. That they have some great defense. Their defense is what they That's what their foundation is. But here's what I like going into this game. The shift of all the pressure has went to Tennessee. I don't think that Kentucky has the amount of pressure that they had going into today. That is lifted off the shoulders. This is what we wanted. Now it's coming down to Tennessee because now their mindset is we can't lose to Kentucky 3 times. We can't do that. This is one of the best opportunities that we're going to have to make a final. I mean, and that seems that way every year. But Kentucky, I think that we come in this game and we're playing loosey goosey. I think that that's the way that we have to enter this into this game. But I think we've got to make shots like we did tonight. We've got to make at least 8 threes to win this game. I think maybe more. But if our defense can play remotely, which is another thing, and then I'll end it. Our defense has played very well against Tennessee, and that's because of the matchup. All right, let's go, Colton. I'm gonna give it to you, and then we'll go Mason, and then we'll end it with Trey.
Yeah, just real quick. I think you touched on it. I think our biggest advantage in this game is that the pressure is on them. Right? They're thinking we can't lose to Kentucky 3 times. And I think really the best thing that can happen is if they come out and miss a few shots early, you can't tell me it's not in the back of their mind. Like
Here we go again.
we've already
Yep.
played 2 games where we shot absolutely terrible against this team. Or if we hit a few early and they miss a few early, like I mean, it's gonna have to play in their head, right? Oh no, like we're not this again, and they could feel a lot of pressure shooting those shots. Obviously, our disadvantage is that we've caught them on cold nights both games, right? And you odds say that that probably won't happen again, although they're not a great shooting team. It's not something you expect them to come out and do that. But they do have a few players with the capability of obviously being a lot better than they were in the 2 games against us. I'm like you, we've got to, if we get to double digit threes, I think we win the game. Like, and maybe not even double digit, but high single digits at least, and we win the game. But our defense has improved. I think Amari Williams and Carr are matchup problems down low for them. They're physical, but I think that where they don't where they don't score outside, that we can really clog the paint with the 2 bigs and cause problems down there for them scoring.
Mhm.
Uh, but it's going to be a tough match. I don't know. I mean, Tennessee will obviously be favored. I don't think it'll be. I think it'll be probably like a 5 point spread, something like that, 4 point spread. It won't be probably a whole lot, but very capable of win. Big matchup. Um, like I said, we're Kentucky. Regardless how tough it's going to be, you expect to win. You want to win. That's the expectation, especially against a rival. You don't want to hear it,
Yeah.
right? So
All right, Mason, what you got?
Yeah, so I'm one that said, I think we match up great against Tennessee. The 2 games that we've played them, we have held Chaz on there to 10 and 15 points in both those games. I think that's the big key, right? He's their main offensive threat. Yeah, Ziegler's probably going to end up with 14, 15 points, but if we can limit Chaz Lanier from getting to that 20 to 25 point game, I think that puts us in a great position to win. I think both games we've played them. I mean, especially that first game. What did they shoot 45 threes in that first game? Something
they went
ridiculous.
11 for 45.
Yeah, I think that's kind of been our game plan going in against them, right? Make them beat us from the three. If they hit threes and they beat us, great. But they're so good. Zakai Ziegler's so good at getting in the paint, causing those defensive breakdowns, leading to open guys, creating easy shots. Dribbling right by their guy, getting to the rim, whatever it may be. So I think we've had two great game plans going in against Tennessee. I think that offensively that helps our game plan too. Like we want to play fast. So if they're jacking up threes and missing, that allows us to get out in transition. They can't set up their half court defense, which they're so good at. So we got to try to keep that and limit Chaz Lanier is kind of my biggest thing going into this game. I will say a little bit that kind of scares me. We've shot 12 for 24 both games against them from the three, 50% both games, right? And we've won by what 5-3 or
It's like
5-4.
5 or 6 maybe.
So I think if we keep that game plan, I do think we match up well, but just do what we've done before. And if we're knocking down shots, we should be able to take care of business.
All right, end it for us, Trey.
Just following on that point, I think since Robinson's been out, we've not shot as many threes. I think we do attack the paint a little more. But I think the Ziegler Butler matchup is going to be the one that is going to make or break us. If Ziegler gets Butler in foul trouble, then yeah, we're going to be in trouble. But I see Barnes Man, if he throws the bully ball at us, they are fully capable of. That scares me a little bit too. But you know, do they hit shots? That's the question. I think the first team to 63. That's my number. First team to 63
63?
wins. That's my
Not say,
number.
what is it? 70? Is it
71.
71? Yeah,
71. Yeah.
not roll a 71.
Oh, no, not going there. This is Bluegrass State of Mind. This ain't KSR.
Yeah, yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
Rule of 63 on this one.
Well, regardless, though, just a great night, a great day. Cats are on top right now. Cats by 90. We're looking forward to it. Just a great day. So, as always, go Cats.
Go Cats.
That's a wrap for this episode of Bluegrass State of Mind. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Also, be on the lookout for our social media pages and be sure to follow them. We've got plenty more stories, insights, and conversations coming your way. And if you really loved it, make sure to share it with a friend. From the hills to the hollers, thanks for tuning in. Until next time, keep that Kentucky spirit strong.